The ghost king of Egypt, Sheshi. Sheshi, also Sheshi, was a ruler of areas of Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period. The dynasty, chronological position, duration and extent of his reign are uncertain and subject to ongoing debate. The difficulty of identification is mirrored by problems in determining events from the end of the Middle Kingdom to the arrival of the Hyksos in Egypt. Nonetheless, Sheshi is, in terms of the number of artifacts attributed to him, the best attested king of the period spanning the end of the Middle Kingdom and the Second Intermediate Period, roughly from circa 1800 BC until 1550 BC. Hundreds of scarabaeus seals bearing his name have been found throughout the Levant, Egypt, Nubia, and as far away as Carthage, where some were still in use 1,500 years after his death. Imagine a king so powerful that his business cards or seals were found from Africa to the Middle East, yet historians can't even agree on when he lived. Made Sheshi the most attested and most mysterious ruler of Egypt's chaotic Second Intermediate Period, circa 1800 to 1550 BC. He was a PR masterclass. Sheshi was the influencer of the Bronze Age. He is the best attested. We have nearly 400 scarab seals bearing his name. That's 3 times more than any other king of his era. Global reach, his seals have been found in Egypt, Nubia, and Canaan. The Carthage connection, incredibly, some of his seals were still being used in Carthage 1,500 years after he died. Talk about a lasting brand. The identity crisis, 3 competing theories. Who was he? Scholars are split into 3 camps. The first, the Hyksos founder. Some believe he is Salites, the legendary foreign invader who founded the 15th dynasty and conquered Memphis. Second, the Canaanite king. Others argue he belonged to the 14th dynasty, a line of Canaanite descended rulers in the Nile Delta who ruled before the Hyksos takeover. Third, the puppet king. A third theory suggests he was a powerful vassal, ruling a small territory under the umbrella of the great Hyksos pharaohs. Proponents of this theory, such as Kim Ryholt and Daryl Baker, credit Sheshi with 40 years of reign, starting circa 1745 BC. Ryholt proposed that Sheshi allied his kingdom with the Kushites in Nubia via dynastic marriage with the Nubian princess Tati. Ryholt further posits that the son of Sheshi and Tati was Nehesi, whose name means the Nubian, whom he believes succeeded Sheshi to the throne as the pharaoh Nehesi Ahasehre. Nomen and prenomen on seals. The nomen of Sheshi is inscribed on over 200 scarab seals, which constitute the sole attestations of his reign. The number of scarabs attributed to Sheshi is paralleled in number only by those bearing the prenomen Maibre, meaning the righteous one is the heart of Ra. Based on the close stylistic similarities between both groups of scarabs as well as their otherwise unmatched numbers, the consensus among Egyptologists is that Maibre was the prenomen of Sheshi. Consequently, Maibre Sheshi is the best attested ruler of the Second Intermediate Period in terms of the number of artifacts attributed to him, with 396 seals and 2 seal impressions showing his nomen and prenomen. This figure is 3 times higher than the 123 seals attributed to the next best attested king of the period, Yagbim Sekandre. The family drama and the Nubian alliance. Sheshi wasn't just a warrior, he was a diplomat. Ryholt proposes that Sheshi had at least 2 consorts, Tati, with whom he fathered his successor pharaoh Nehesi, and an unknown queen with whom he fathered the prince Ipku. Ryholt reached this conclusion on noting that scarabs of Queen Tati and Princess Ipku and Nehesi bear stylistic markers which are found on those of Sheshi, and thus that they must have been contemporaries. In addition, Tati is attested as a feminine Nubian name in earlier execration texts, which would explain the peculiar name of Nehesi, meaning the Nubian. For Ryholt, Sheshi's motivation behind a dynastic marriage with Kushite princess was to ally his kingdom with the Nubians. The royal marriage evidence suggests that he married a Nubian princess named Tati to seal an alliance with the kingdom of Kush. Their son Nehesi, whose name literally means the Nubian, eventually took the throne. It's a rare look at a multicultural royal family in an ancient world. The giant conspiracy. For the ancient mysteries fans, some historians link the name Sheshi to the biblical Sheshai, one of the Anakim giants living in Hebron. While it's a fringe theory, it adds a layer of legendary spice to his story. No historical attestation of Sheshi is known for certain, as Sheshi is absent from the Turin canon, a list of the kings written on papyrus during the Ramesside period and which serves as the primary historical source for the Second Intermediate period. This is because the section of the papyrus covering the 13th to 17th dynasties is heavily damaged, and the problem of Sheshi's chronological position cannot be resolved from the document. It is unclear whether Sheshi is mentioned in the Egyptica, a history of Egypt written in the 3rd century BC, during the reign of Ptolemy II, by the Egyptian priest Manetho. Indeed, the Egyptica only reports Hellenized names for the Egyptian pharaohs, and the identification of Sheshi with any particular name remains controversial. King of the 14th dynasty. Reinhold and Baker reject the identification of Sheshi as a 15th dynasty ruler. Reinhold observes that early Hyksos kings such as Sakir Kar and Kyan are known to have adopted the title Heka Kasavat, meaning ruler of the foreign lands, a title which Sheshi did not bear. Consequently, Reinhold suggests that Sheshi was actually a 14th dynasty ruler, the 14th dynasty being a line of kings of Canaanite descent possibly ruling over the eastern Nile Delta immediately before the arrival of the Hyksos 15th dynasty. Many Egyptologists accepted the existence of the 14th dynasty based on archaeological evidence and on the fact that about 50 kings are recorded in the Turin canon between the 13th dynasty and the later Hyksos rulers. On the other hand, Redford proposed that these 50 kings constitute the genealogy of the Hyksos rulers and that the 14th dynasty is chimerical. Mid-18th century BC, Reinhold dates Sheshi's reign to the mid-18th century BC. His main argument is the presence of seals of Sheshi and of two kings of the mid-13th dynasty, Sekemre, Kutavi, Kabau, and Jetkepereu, in the Egyptian forge of Uronate in Nubia. The forge of Uronate was abandoned at some point in the 13th dynasty, and even which Reinhold dates to the reign of Jetkepereu, given the lack of seals attributable to the subsequent kings. Reinhold thus proposes that Sheshi reigned from circa 1745 BC until 1705 BC, and was a contemporary of Kabau and Jetkepereu. Reinhold's hypothesis regarding Sheshi comes with his dating the start of the 14th dynasty around 1805 BC, over 90 years earlier than accepted by most Egyptologists. They propose instead that the 14th dynasty emerged during the 2 decades of Merneptah I's reign, which is dated between 1700 BC and 1660 BC, depending on the scholar. I is the last 13th dynasty pharaoh to be attested in Lower Egypt, and most scholars therefore contend that he abandoned Ichtawi, the capital of Egypt since the reign of Amenemhat I, in favor of Thebes, as he lost control of the Delta region to the 14th dynasty. Mid to late 17th century BC, if Sheshi is to be identified with Salicet, the founder of the 15th dynasty, according to Manetho, then he would have lived around 1650 BC, the date agreed upon by most Egyptologists, including Reinhold, for the arrival of the Hyksos in Egypt. If Sheshi lived during the second half of the 15th dynasty, between the reigns of Kian and Apophis, as Ben-Tor and Wardway favor, then Sheshi would have reigned circa 1600 BC. Reign length. The Egyptologists identifying Sheshi with Salites follow Josephus, Sextus Julius Africanus, and Eusebius, who report that Manetho credited Salites with 19 years of reign in his Egyptica. Reinhold relies instead on a statistical method and estimates the duration of Sheshi's reign to have been between 20 and 53 years. The method consists in tallying the seals of Yagbin Sakenre, Yamus Nubosere, Karech Kavosere, and Amu Ahotepre with those of Sheshi. Then, knowing that the first 4 of these kings reigned for at least 30 years, implies that they have left between 7.5 and 20 seals per year while on the throne. Consequently, Sheshi's nearly 400 scarab would correspond to 53 years, which Reinhold gives us about 40 years. The bottom line, despite having no grand monuments and being left off the official king list, Maibre Sheshi's tiny scarab seals prove he was a titan of trade and diplomacy. He is the king who refused to be forgotten, even if we can't decide exactly who he was.